I think you done started a fire. You done started something. I need to turn you over to Tap Network. So here we go. Let's just dive right in for Tap Network. It's a little bit about missing Instagram, some AI magic, and the future of SEO. My name is Aretha Simons. I'm going to show you how you can engage on the next slide. You guys know you're on mute, but we'd love for you to put your questions in the Q&A. I think we got a lot of team members who will grab them from the chat too, that from Tap Network. This is closed caption, so you can click on the CC button and get your closed caption in all kinds of language. You're going to get the video and the slides. I think you're going to need them, especially those who are not posting at all. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Tap Network. Julian, go. I'm excited for this one. You got it.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. My name is Julian. I'm the Junior Director of Data Solutions here at Tap Network. I deal a lot with nonprofit websites, troubleshooting them, coming up with data, how we're moving data across platforms and, dealing with SEO and paid advertising. And I'm joined by Kyle here.
Hey guys, yeah, I'm Kyle Barkins. I'm a co-founder of Tap Network here. My background is a lot more in the application development space, software space. We formed Tap back in 2012, really geared towards focusing on mission-driven nonprofit organizations and applying a lot of what we knew from our enterprise time in the enterprise space, work with large and enterprise companies, and bringing that back to nonprofits and in the nonprofit world to really work with organizations that are doing good. We'll go through a little bit more about what TAP does. A couple later slides, but I'll kick it back over to Julian to go through our agenda for today.
Yeah, so we're going to be covering a lot today. We still want to leave a little bit of time at the end for QA. I'm not sure how much we're going to have, but if we have some team members in the chat, if you have any questions, they'll be able to sort of help you out as we go. So we're going to introduce TAP a little bit more. Then we're going to start talk about how SEO has been changing with all the the AI advancements. We're then going to take a look at how AI has been affecting marketing platforms. So, what you're doing on Instagram, Facebook, some other platforms. Finally, we're going to give you a roadmap for, how to start, making some changes, taking in all this new information and hopefully driving some more impact for your organization. And then we'll wrap up for the day. And like Aretha said, we'll get you these slides and the recording afterwards as well.
Cool. So I started talking about a little bit about TAP. We have a lot of slides today, so if I talk too fast, I'm sorry. As I said, we started 13 years ago now. That's crazy. It's been so long. As I mentioned, it's like really being able to help nonprofits compete in this digital space or every space now. Helping you all look through everything from strategy to execution to tying your systems together to make sure that we're maximizing your impact. We're keeping you guys at the forefront and helping you innovate. And we're helping apply some of the stuff that was previously only available to these large organizations or people with these large staffs, or large pockets, basically, to organizations that really need it the most and to the communities that they serve that need it the most. As we mentioned, we work with everything from kind of enterprise level to multi-billion-dollar multinational companies, green and clean energy, healthcare, and kind of all across the board. And then we work down with the local nonprofits that we kind of started to talk about. So looking at organizations of all sizes to really help drive that impact, whether that's through donations, whether that's through signups, whether that's through the communities they serve, through educational content, whatever it may be, and finding the right approach and putting the right solution in place for you all. Some of the problems we solve, some of the ways that we can help, as I said, it really runs the gamut. So if you think technology, if you think strategy, if you think marketing, whether that's inbound or outbound, and the tools you use every day, we can kind of bridge that gap at any point. So everything, we can come in and kind of take over everything. We have a lot of organizations we work with where we are their entire really marketing and technology arm, and that's small organizations and large organizations. We have organizations that have large, hundreds of employees, and they trust us with their marketing and their technology and keeping their systems integrated, whether that's a state government or a large organization. And we have small organizations that really want to make sure they have the time to get out in the community to serve their missions, and they put that stuff back on us to handle for them. We also work really well as like part of a team too. So hey, maybe you guys are really great at strategy, maybe you guys are really great at content, but you just really need some help with design or helping make sure the systems are talking to each other. We can really jump in there. So as I said, it really runs the gamut. And just really quickly, like if you go through TechSoup's site, so we're the agency for TechSoup. If you guys get email, the email that came out to to join this webinar, for example, had come through us, through a system we put in place for TechSoup that we help manage. A lot of the web pages and things like that that you see is at some point crossed our plate. But also, if you go to TechSoup's website and you go through the marketing services, the AI services, or the web services, any of that's going to kind of come back to us as well. So if you want to learn more about that, it's a great way to reach out and find out more.
Yeah, so we're going to start by jumping into SEO a little bit. And so when we say SEO, we're talking about search engine optimization. And really, when we're talking about search engine optimization, we're talking about a lot of smaller tasks. So we're going to be breaking down a couple of the big players in here, but just know that SEO as a term itself encompasses a lot of different things that you can do, whether it's technical setup, whether it's content writing, whether it's outreach to similar organizations or community boards or things like that. There's a lot of things in here. But we're going to be just hitting on some of the major points here. So when we talk SEO, for most of the time that these conversations have been happening, we've been focusing on a couple of things. It's keywords and backlinks. Keywords are the things that when somebody types something into Google, it's going to optimize for that keyword, and hopefully you show up sort of towards the top. A backlink is when somebody else links to your website on their website. That increases authority. And will sort of again positively impact your ranking. Optimizing your meta tags and your heading. So rather than just saying, "Hey, the website looks correct," making sure that everything is structured properly on the back end. And then the real focus was saying, "Hey, we want to rank in the top 10 blue links," which is on this first page of results. We want to make sure that we're showing up, within those first 10 organic results. There's the paid ads and the feature snippets and everything there. But that's what the main focus on SEO had been for quite a long time. And then you've probably noticed this. We've talked about it a couple times. AI came along and started being integrated natively into a lot of searches. So it's no longer just here's links to these pages. Go find what you want. Good luck. Now we have hey, there's an AI overview. There's something where it can summarize results and guide you to the ones that you're going to want. Sometimes you just sort of get these direct answers. Say you're going to do something, you're asking, I don't want to turn on anybody's phones, but Siri or something like that will give you direct answers and no longer say, "Hey, go here, go to find that answer." Has gotten a little bit better. I remember maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I was given a webinar, and at that time, Google would say, "Hey, if you want to keep the cheese on your pizza, why don't you add super glue to it or something?" So it's gotten a lot better at understanding the context and of the question. It's been affecting how we're going to actually approach search engine optimization moving forward. So with all these things that AI has been putting into Google, we primarily focus on Google because it's the biggest player. Not to say that Bing and other search engines aren't important, but Google sort of drives the market here. We're seeing up to 70% fewer clicks for some really popular queries. There's also these things called zero-click searches. That's what I was talking about when somebody searches for something and then they get the information they need right from a summary or a direct answer, or the AI assistant provides that information for them. So when we have these fewer visits, it's harder to attract people with that. If you're writing blogs, to say, "Hey, we're going to get them on the site, then we're going to direct them through a call to action to this registration page or this area over here." And so we need to not completely abandon the old way of doing things, but basically reincorporate all of these new AI advancements into what we're doing for SEO. And as we do that, we get some slightly different names for this. Kyle, you want to go into some of these?
Sure, yeah. So SEO, as most people have heard of it before, is search engine optimization. So it's sort of been redefined, and we can thank Neil Patel, who's like the expert in this space, for that. He's kind of changed that to search everything optimization. So not just searching in Google, but like how you communicate with Siri, how you communicate with Amazon Alexa, and all the different AI devices that might be around you use in everyday life. So you want to optimize your site, your organization for that. There's still the traditional SEO, which is for ranking websites and making sure that tapnetwork.com ranks when you use the search engine. But I'm sure all of you can relate to how much more you're probably using other things besides search engines these days as well. So that leads us into what we're kind of talking through today is either AEO or GEO. So AEO is answer engine optimization. So more frequently now, people are asking a question. They're not saying, best, hamburger near me. It's like, where can I get the best hamburger that has all this criteria or whatever? Like, how do I fix this leaky pipe? And like they're asking those types of questions in some engine, and you're expecting an answer. They're not expecting you to tell me where to go find that answer, which is like the old way of SEO. They're asking me they want the actual answer. They want to have content that gives you the direct answer, that is the how-to guide or the video, or even summarizes that for you. So making sure we're optimized for that. And then there's generative engine optimization. So that's when you ask same sort of thing, ask a question, or ask like ChatGPT or Claude or Grok or Perplexity or whatever, to answer those, for something, or to summarize something for you. It's making sure that you are the source that's cited in those results. So it might ask for, like, give me the top 10 places to visit in Boston or something like that, or the top 10 organizations in Boston. Well, you want to show up there, not because somebody puts you in a blog post sometime, which is kind of the old way to get optimized in search, but you want that search engine to say, here's the most relevant information. Tap Network, we're not in Boston, but maybe we will be. But they would say, like, Tap Network is the best place to get a hamburger in Boston because we have the content out there to answer that question. So to go into a little bit deeper, answer engine optimization, really being able to perfect how your organization shows up there, is how you create this content now. So it's not just a bunch of content about your organization, stuffing it with keywords and things like that, getting backlinks. That's not as relevant for AEO as it used to be for things like SEO. It's really answering those questions. So writing things in like a Q&A format. So what question would someone ask and what would your answer be? Both of those things should be in the same place. And that's sort of how you see these results show up in things like Google, where it has like the top responses, or it has recommended questions you might ask. So one way to do that is by adding an FAQ, a frequently asked questions area, to your website. Sometimes those are just big sections of content with different questions and answers. Sometimes you see those where it's like a little accordion thing where you see the question, you click it, and it expands. They're all over TechSoup's site, for example. But then when you do that, just making sure you're following the right how-to schema. So there's like a little bit of technical stuff you can do on the back end to make sure it follows that how-to guide. Not being overly verbose, as I sort of am probably right now, but providing short and clear answers is going to help streamline that too, because it's letting these engines not have to do a bunch of work to find the right answer. So short, structured, direct answers to like the common questions that people are going to ask. You don't have to go crazy with like these very complex questions that no one's ever going to ask. You actually want to answer the more frequently asked questions, right? So an example could be something like, the question would be, how can I donate food to the Wilmington Food Bank, which might appear on your website if you're the Wilmington Food Bank. And then the answer that would be ready for AEO would be, you can donate food at our warehouse. Here's the address, 123 Main Street, Wilmington, Delaware, Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. We also accept online donations through our Amazon wish list. And then that way, when you search for that in something like that in Google, or you search for a relevant string in Google, Google might show that as a commonly asked question and show your answer as the answer to that question. Or it would show up in like Siri or Google or Alexa when you ask that question, like, hey, I want to donate food in Wilmington, where can I do that? You have the answer to that question, so that it doesn't have to go out there and find and create the answer, which was like the typical way of doing it before. Or you as the end user doesn't have to take those extra steps to like go to your website, find your location, find your hours, see where you can donate. You have created that whole answer right there for that user.
Yeah, and so as we have the SEO, we have AEO, and now for the generative engine optimization, one of the things that we really want to focus on is making sure that, when we're putting out information, it's going to be, one, accurate always, two, really easy to understand, clear for the user. It's going to have, storytelling to it. So you're not just going to upload like a data spreadsheet, but then, for AI agents, it's going to be able to, take that information, understand the structure, and then provide that accurate answer to the user. So, not all nonprofit organizations are going to be doing their own sort of like data and research. Some of them are going to be focused on, actually solving some of these issues. But you still want to make sure that when you're describing the problems you're trying to fix, you're able to structure this information properly. So here, if we're trying to get some of these results that, are going to be cited by AI, we want to make sure that everything is formatted quite well. And so here, we're trying to showcase the impact data from, the Wilmington Food Bank example here. And so we're just saying, hey, we have a blog post. We're going to have it be all around. We donated 1.2 million meals to families in need last year. And so, when somebody's, searching for things that are going to be, related to that, and Google's trying to give its AI summary and provide this information, it's going to cite you right there. And then, here we're seeing the response. According to the Wilmington Food Bank, 1.2 million meals were distributed in 2024. You can start to see how it translates the information that you provide into, its answer. On one hand, it's like, okay, it's not necessarily generating its own complete original knowledge. It can't. But it is saying, hey, I found this information. Here's where I found it. And here's me interpreting this information for you. You want to make sure that everything you're doing is clear and structured in a way that for both users and AI agents is going to come out cleanly and quite well. And here we have a question just before we move on to sort of the strategy. Alyssa asks, doesn't that discourage people from actually going to our websites though? I don't know if discourage is the right word. I think, the situation we're seeing is that, people are doing that regardless of what we would like them to do. And so when we're talking about Google search, we have this big mass of like all these shifting searches. People are, you're just presented with a search bar there on Google, and you can type anything you want into. It can be questions, it could be a sentence, it can be gibberish. So it has all these different data points. And how people are going to use it. If they're looking for simple information, there might not be a need for them to go further than the answer that is provided right there at the top of search results. So if we know that that's a fact, that there are people who just aren't going to need to go to click through, we want to make sure that we're still taking advantage of what's there, making sure that we're being cited. We're able to come in there and work with the reality of search engine performance right now. So on one hand, obviously we want to get people on the sites because that's where, all your other conversion points are. We're not just looking to answer questions. You're looking to get people signed up for your programs, to attend your events, to make a donation. But we don't just want to leave stuff on the table. For mission-driven organizations specifically, we definitely want to be able to take advantage of all the resources that are available for us. And with some of this, it's not going to be too much of a change from what you're doing. You're just going to need to focus on it and have that in your head a little bit. So, we have the AI SEO, really means we need to take a hybrid strategy. So just like I was saying before, it's not like we're going to do one thing to the exclusion of everything else. Really, we're going to break it down this way. SEOs could be rankings when people are looking for things or certain searches aren't conducive to, a summary or a direct answer from Google. And we're focusing on the answer engine optimization for those direct answers. And then the generative engine optimization for those citations when you're getting those AI results, maybe inside of Claude or ChatGPT or something like that. Kyle.
So yeah, so
how are we going to talk about success metrics?
Yeah, so with this switch, we're kind of changing the way that things get ranked and some of the stuff that we want to report on. Sure, keyword rankings still are viable. Organic clicks, so if somebody comes to your website, how many clicks do we get on the website? But we're actually looking at a level up and even a level deeper in where you're showing up and how people are engaging with you. So those new metrics would be things like how many times are you mentioned in AI overviews across different channels? So seeing, doing your searches and reporting on that as well. How often you're cited in those different AI assistants. So when is Siri saying, hey, you should check out Tap Network, or you should check out TechSoup? And then tracking the link clicks back from those citations as well. And then when you're being included in those snippets, those rich snippets, or those results or summaries, are some of the things that we're looking at tracking in this new age.
We have another question right here is, would any of these engine optimizations be able to read PDF uploads? They put their annual report up there and has a lot of statistics there. So that's one thing where there is actually a complex reason why you would, having a PDF is great, but you might want to include a lot of that information directly on your site. One, you're able to structure it, based on those schema structures. And two, you also don't want to have to take people off of your website to go read a PDF, maybe in a desktop application or something. You want to be able to make that information as presentable as possible, whether they're on their phone, just browsing through the site. So into the actual, hey, can they read PDF uploads or not? That's going to be very dependent on the actual tool we're referencing. But I do think there are plenty of reasons to take that information, even if you do list the PDF, on your site, to break out some of those statistics, those high impact things, either in blog posts on a landing page or something like that. Let's go here. Sorry, a little bit of technical difficulties. There we go. So one of the main things, especially as we're looking at these new ways to sort of optimize the website and the way that you're putting content out there, one of the most important things to focus on is authenticity. So I know a lot of times when, stuff comes up, people are like, hey, what's the quick and easy way to get this done? How can I cheat the system a little bit and, get this in here? And, in classic SEO days, people would try keyword stuffing or like, getting backlinks through spam websites and stuff. All of that, it gets patched out and will actually hurt you. And then especially as we're trying to, structure this content for these, AI agents, we don't want to discount the actual people who are trying to, view the site and interact with this as well. So we always want to maintain that human voice. You want to, if you're reading it back, you want to see like, hey, this sounds like, there are real people on the other end of this organization and not, something that's been generated by one AI agent to go talk to another one to then, get another AI agent to view it for some sort of thing. So focus on all the things that you folks are already doing out there in the real world. It's really easy for mission-based organizations to, pull from this because you're having that impact in communities all over the country. So focus on the real experience and the real expertise you have. And here, EAT, focus on the experience, expertise, authority, and building that trust. That authenticity is going to get you success, especially as stuff becomes noisier with how easy it is to get stuff out there on the internet today. One of the ways that we can, focus on this as we're looking at, if we're doing search everything, not just regular SEO, we want to focus on topic clusters. So if you have a certain thing that you do in your organization, you're going to want to have a landing page for it. You're going to want to have content that you put out in blogs. You're going to want to be able to link to other areas on your site where people can continue to get involved. You want to make sure that this is all working together in one area. So it's not just, hey, I have this, one mention on this page here. And then, if somebody looks exactly the right way, they may find, another main landing page. You don't want to be able to guide people through this. So you can be starting with a big pool of a general audience and move people down towards, maybe making a donation. Here you have this example. You start with a hunger problem, then people are going to be searching for food insecurity or nutrition programs. And then finally, you're going to guide them down to, here's how you can donate. Here's how you can help us solve this problem. So interlinking everything shows the relationship between all the data you're putting on your site. And there's plenty of ways to put content out in the world without doing websites. AI sort of indexes quite a lot of things. So podcasts, there's a transcript on a video, maybe you upload to YouTube, even your social content. We're going to be getting into some of the platforms, more specifically, moving a little bit forward. But just think of all the things we talked about that you want to organize for your website. You want to do the same thing when you're putting out this information in other places. Sometimes like video transcripts, you don't have the schema ability to do stuff in there, but you still want to make sure that as you're talking about things, as you're putting things out there, you're communicating in a way that is going to be able to be, picked up and indexed and give you, all these benefits we're talking about when it comes to search engines and AI agents.
Yeah, so one of those things we could do is by making sure that, like we said, the page structure, but also creating an FAQ page or making sure there's FAQs on the page. So like one easy win is something like an FAQ on a nonprofit site to how to donate safely online is going to get pulled right into Google's AI overview, as long as you have the answer there for it, kind of obviously. But something that one of the risks that's going to come along with this is if you don't start, structure things this way and kind of leave the stagnant content that's out there, is you're going to start to see declining traffic. You can see this at the industry or the kind of worldwide level. I don't remember the exact number. I can look it up, but I think it was like in Q1 and Q2 of this year, traffic across the board to websites, like search traffic and new traffic to websites was down 40 or 50%, almost half, almost cut in half because so many people are using generative AI or the answer engine optimizations and getting their answer right there, instead of going all the way to the website and clicking around a website. And we see that across the board for organizations. That does give you opportunity for two things. One, you're probably going to get better traffic because it's more specific traffic. So making sure your site is then still optimized for that traffic. But it also means if you are showing up in those results, you're not losing those customers. You're just driving them somewhere else. So think of it as like having a second storefront or a second way to engage with you all. So then the opportunity then would be, if you do adapt, as I was saying, like I kind of went through this and skipped around a little bit, but like becoming that trusted source that AI is going to cite you. So again, it gives like another way, another avenue to get into you or get to talk to you. It starts to build you up as an authority. And what's really nice about some of this stuff is if these people never got to your site before, but you're showing up as the source of this information, you're probably showing up in more places now than you would have before. So they start to see that name more. You get that brand recognition, and then you're also, as I started to say, reaching different audiences that you wouldn't have been in front of before because they might not have made it the whole way to your website because they didn't need to go there and click around. They saw something else first in search results or a different, they saw a brand they recognize. But now that they're like, oh, Tap Network is the name in this, you start to see that, and you got that, you reached out in front of somebody new. So SEO is evolving. It's definitely not dying. It's, the traditional SEO is changing a little bit, but there's so much changing that is worth kind of latching on to. It's really important to more than ever to make sure that we're structuring content for people and AI, and we're not doing that structure just for search engines like it sort of used to be. So making sure that what you're writing and what you're putting out there is what someone can consume and understand first and foremost, and it's no longer just like having a bunch of content about one thing on your site that's not consumable, and that allow you to build that authority through that actual content. I think one thing I'm going to say that we had a client say to us years ago when we were working with another agency, and the other agency was putting together content and taglines for that client, and the client turned around and was like, "No one talks like this," right? Like he's like, I'm your audience, and people don't talk like this," and that was like it's kind of something that stuck with me over the years. It's like, yeah, it's like if you're putting all these buzzwords and things like that out there that don't really mean anything to anyone, and your audience doesn't understand that, and doesn't resonate with that, and they don't really get what you're saying, they're not really your audience, and you're not really speaking to them. So being authentic and having useful content is going to get you a lot further.
Yeah, so now we're going to take a look at some other platforms. So AI search isn't just affecting Google and the other search engines. There's plenty of other platforms that it's pulling from. And so, the way that people are trying to find information, it's not just sort of one source either. Yes, Google is sort of the biggest search engine, but not everybody uses a search engine to, find the information. People are searching on TikTok and YouTube for, video content for questions. People use Reddit and other forum sites to get, as close to sort of like unvarnished by SEO writing answers to things. So they're like, I'm not looking for somebody who's, put in all these keywords, and just like I was saying, it's like doesn't sound like something somebody would actually say. You want a real human voice, they're going there. And then, just like the AI assistants we're putting in, there's so many different ways that people are trying to find information now. And we want to make sure that, if it's relevant to the organization, we're taking advantage of that fact. So let's talk about how some of the social media platforms here have been affected by this. One of the big ones right here, Instagram becomes searchable. So this is even before we get to anything AI related. Any Instagram Pro account can now be indexed by Google. So that means the information that you've put up there, with all your hashtags, your captions, all that stuff, is now going to show up in search results. So here we can see that we're looking at post captions and alt text. Alt text is important for any photo you put up there, but it's all going to be factored into when you're thinking SEO. You also got to think about Instagram. It's not just your website, and so this should simplify things because all the lessons you're learning for how to create this content for your website is equally applicable to how you're doing it on other platforms here. So some Instagram optimization tips. So the first one is write these keyword-rich captions. So here, instead of saying, this is a great one, I really like this one, because it's a way that a lot of people will instinctively put stuff out. They'll have a photo of a party and say, hey, a great day at the pantry, and then they'll rely on the photo to show what's happening. Hopefully that photo has some alt text to describe it a little bit for people with screen readers and search engines. But instead, volunteers at Wilmington Food Bank distributed 500 meals to families in need today. That's going to give you far more SEO juice, as we call it, than great day at the pantry. That's not going to do anything for you. Maybe you'll show up pantry on page 210 at that point, but nobody's ever going to get to page 210. But volunteers at Wilmington Food Bank, that caption there, it's going to be far more helpful for your users, for your performance on SEO, and for your inclusion in AI results. Alt text, it helps people with screen readers. It can also help people with slow connections, where if the image doesn't load directly, it'll still have something that appears there, and your SEO. So make sure that anytime you're uploading a photo anywhere and you have the ability to add alt text, you do so. Then finally, make sure that you're using some keywords in your bio and add your location there. So a lot of times people aren't searching for, if they're searching, to use Kyle's example, a hamburger, they're not looking for a hamburger on the other side of the country. They're looking for it close to them most of the time. So you want to make sure that as you're sort of filling out these profiles and adding information and context for these things, that you do have, in this example, Wilmington nonprofit fighting hunger, then volunteer and donate. Those are the things that you want people to do, that you want people to start to interact with you on. You're not just sort of a passive thing that's providing information. You're an organization that's out there in the real world making change.
TikTok. This is one of my favorite ones. My mom, wonderful lady. I think she's 71 years old, 72 years old this year. Everything she got me for Christmas, she got from the TikTok shop. So I love that, she's using this. But it is, certainly Gen Z search engine as well. Seeing people of all ages using this, and 40% of that younger audience is using this now instead of Google. So they're actually getting answers and learning to how to do things. This is so scary. I'm guilty of this as well, but like learning how to do common things, through TikTok now instead of Google, and instead of things like YouTube. So like able to go on there and search for things like, hey, best thrift store in Philly, or how to fix a leaky pipe, or how to change a tire, or something like that. And they're getting the most popular results, right? So TikTok is identifying that, saying who's engaging with this, who's nearby, what's the most popular, answer for this. And that's what's showing up for 40% of those users, right? So they're not reading the content the same way they used to before. So this presents a really pretty amazing opportunity to create short consumable content and kind of telling a story. So still following that contextual, actual helpful content method we just talked about previously, but putting it in video format and then adding your own spin on it. And it doesn't have to be professionally produced. There's so many little tools just in the palm of your hand that you can add to that, to add a little flair to the video, links, content, text, whatever it might be, just to get it out there and have that content there and start to show up in those, I'll call them non-traditional searches. So it said, TikTok has taken over some of what was previously on YouTube, but YouTube is still very prominent. So, creating that same sort of short, engaging content that now shows up in those answers, in those search results. One way to drive it a little bit higher is making sure that you're going to have captions on that. So plenty of systems out there can transcribe your video, but if it's actually, if you transcribe it, it's factually correct, that's going to be even more powerful. Adding captions to that, whether that's for people to watch it when they don't have, sound turned on. So I know I consume most of my video content with the sound turned off in different environments, or if it's, for screen readers or people that might have a disability, having that is very important. Making sure that they're short videos, so hour-long videos. This webinar probably is not going to be something you consume like when you're taking a walk or something like that, but something short, quick, that answers their question quickly, if it is longer, has chapters and logical breakpoints, and then either you cutting up a longer video into many shorter ones, or having that longer video available in addition to help build authority on those like longer issues or whatever. So if I said changing a tire, maybe that's a short video, 5 minutes, whatever, and we can kind of skip through it. But if it's, how to rotate your tires and check your brakes and whatever it is, like that's a much longer one. And we were able to take that one little piece of the video out of that too, and use that to grab their attention. And then link, kind of all the common platforms are still relevant here. So, but just make sure we're optimizing for those. LinkedIn, as we know, does show up in Google search now, especially there's that longer form content that you might put out there. So publishing newsletters and things like that on LinkedIn is going to get indexed. It's going to show up on Google search. So follow that same methodology and pattern. And X, somebody asked the other day, like, do people still use X? It's still very tech heavy. It's still very, maybe not as young of a demographic as it once was, but that short, relevant, breaking news trends, very relevant there. And then there's also, the different AI tools are certainly using that, monitoring that, watching that. So it's a great opportunity to get that short content out there and really build that thought leadership. So just a quick takeaway. Social equals search, basically, right? So having that content out there before, where it was just on your website or just on YouTube, all these social networks are public, or are able to be public now, publicly, especially in businesses or organizations that have that and are trying to promote that way. So they're no longer just as engagement tools for somebody to click like. Measuring likes is probably I would say certainly at this point, not nearly as large of a metric as it is measuring, views, but actually seeing where you're indexed, and getting that content out there to become indexed and build up your brand or build up your reputation. So these are, just look at these other venues for content that's going to show up in these different engines.
So next I want to focus on paid ads. So we've been focusing a lot on the organic stuff, how you can structure the things you're already doing, you're already putting out there to make sure that you're taking advantage of all these opportunities. But one of the big things that many nonprofits can take advantage of is paid advertising, especially through Google Ads. So I'm not sure how much longer the ad grant will exist. They always say, hey, it's could end at any time. But right now, if you're approved through Google for Nonprofits, you get $10,000 each month to run Google Ads on. There are some restrictions that you have to deal with, but it is a huge opportunity, and we want to make sure that you're taking advantage of that. And it can be really helpful, especially as you're working on it. If you're looking at classic SEO, trying to increase your rank, that might take a little time. In the meantime, you can say, hey, I know I'm going to appear on the first page at least some of the time by winning some of these ad results. One of the things that Google Ads has done, in addition to the, they call them responsive search ads and search campaigns, where you're basically saying, here's the keywords I want to target, maybe get some other keywords around them that are pretty close matches. I'm going to give you a bunch of headlines and descriptions, and then, it's going to create the ads for you and put them out there. Google ended up seeing that, like, hey, there's a bunch of these areas that people aren't purchasing ad space on, a lot of other Google products that exist there. Now, on the other hand, they're seeing that, like, hey, people are finding Google Ads too difficult to set up. And so they sort of combined those two and came up with Performance Max, where it's basically you say, here's a little bit about us, here's how we like to present ourselves, here's some of the things that we're focused on, run some ads for me. And it'll take all that over and sort of utilize that budget. Now, it does require some I guess some regular search ads to be set up to really understand and perform the way you want. But especially for organizations that are fairly niche in what they do, it can be difficult to reach that $10,000 spend, and so the money's just sort of left on the table there. So Performance Max is very good at sort of eating up that remaining budget and filling in the gaps between all your other campaigns that you have active on there. So you're going to have less control. But you're able to say, here's the things that are focused on it. You can check in every now and then and readjust as you like. But it is a very helpful sort of ad type that makes sure that, hey, we have $10,000. We want to spend as close to $10,000 as possible. We want to get visibility on this program. We want to drive donations, for Giving Tuesday, things like that. We also have Meta. And one of the big differences between Google Ads and ads on platforms like Facebook and Instagram is basically a push and pull difference. On Google Ads, you're saying, hey, somebody is searching for something, they've put in some sort of text inside of the Google bar, and they're going to be presented with a bunch of options. We want to pull them towards us, and we want to be chosen. We want to be cited. On social platforms, it's push marketing. So people are going to have, their feeds. The algorithm has generated the order of all their posts and stuff, and the ads there are slotted in, so it's pushed towards the user. So for that, you want to make sure that you are, putting out an ad that's worthy of being pushed in front of, photos of family and friends, and updates for things that they're focused on. So it does offer, some automated targeting, and allows you to test creative. That can be really helpful, especially if you're like, hey, I'm just getting started with this. I'm not sure what's really going to work for us. And so these tools sort of help you as you're building that experience and knowledge, can help you figure out what's actually going to work for you. Can also create variations of text and visuals, and that can be incredibly helpful, especially for those who have limited resources for copywriting and design. And still, despite all that, video is still number one. That short form content, whether it's on, Reels on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or something like this, the video tends to be prioritized because that is engaged with the most. So one of the big things here is we're saying we're not just focused on keywords. We're not just trying to rank for digital marketing agency in TAP's use case. We really want to find the audience. So it's less about here's who we are and more about here's the people we're trying to help. Here's the people we're trying to get in touch with. And so one of the big things that AI has helped with is instead of just polling like, is this word mentioned on the website? Okay, you're going to be indexed, and there's all these other factors that determine the order, saying what is somebody actually trying to do when they're searching. So you might search Chase online banking, not because you're interested in online banking, but you're like, I want to get the login screen so I can go view my bank accounts. So that's you're using for navigational purposes. Maybe you're trying to find the best product to buy for a certain issue you're having, or maybe you're like, hey, I know what I want to buy, but I want to have the best deal on it. So you're looking for different places to purchase something, or it's just something you're like, I need information on this. So the actual context for how that keyword is being used in search has a much larger effect on how things are being, on the organic side, organized, and on the paid side, how people are winning bids and, getting placed in those feeds. So really, I think this goes hand in hand with trying to talk like a human. We're really trying to create content and information across all of our platforms that are going to, be helpful and engaging to real humans on the other end of it. As we're doing this, there is, some new challenges that we have to face. And so that is attribution. Where are people coming from? How are they interacting with us? Especially if they're jumping between platforms, they're coming from different sources. It can be hard to understand, like, hey, what part of our marketing chain is contributing the most? Where we have some resources to apply to maybe upgrade some of our marketing. Where would they best be applied here? So there are some new KPIs that we need to take advantage of. Those AI mentions, impressions, not just when we're talking about paid ads, but even organically. How often are you showing up? How frequently are you going to be in front of the audiences you want to be? And what does this do to increase the impression of your brand across all platforms? And this is the creative quality. It really matters quite a bit. So if you are trying to put stuff out there, you don't just want to say, okay, what's the best way to do this? Let me take an example from maybe a tutorial site and just change some of the words a little bit and put out something kind of bland. Again, you want it to be engaging and authentic to who you are and the work you're doing. One of the things that can really help with that quality is getting information from the people you're helping. Ask for those testimonials, get those reviews. People being able to see like, hey, there's real humans tied to this. That just increases that authenticity and that trust that you're trying to build as an organization. And so also storytelling. So most of the time, in an organization, you're viewing like, hey, I'm dealing with this problem, and we're getting volunteers here and event attendees here, and it's easy to sort of flatten the rest of the people who aren't involved in the organization to like, hey, these are just users. But in reality, people have different levels of knowledge. They're at different places in their own life. And so it's not just here, let me create one thing that's going to fit for everybody. Telling a story can really help by saying like, hey, this isn't just going to be, hey, I'm trying to find a person to match this persona that will then robotically click over something. You're saying, here, we've discovered this problem for the Wilmington Food Bank example. There's this hunger issue. Here's how we're starting to solve it. Here's how you can get involved. Here's, the impact that we've had over the past year. Tell that story about how you're taking a problem and working towards a solution on that. It's going to give you far more impact, across everything you're doing, whether it's paid advertising or whether it's optimizing for AI agents or even, your classic SEO. So here we're talking more the same when it goes to paid ads. Get that strong creative. Don't let it be generic. Make sure that you're able to be trustworthy with this, and all the things you're doing are actually tied back to some sort of action that you want people to do. It's a sign up. It's a registration. It's downloading a resource packet. Make sure that you're not just doing things for the sake of doing them. You're doing them because they're going to drive the impact across your organization.
So with that, we've got some new platforms we're looking at. I'm going to just hop ahead. So I'm going to breeze through these. So Reddit's one of them. This is kind of probably unusual to think of. We don't necessarily think of Reddit or things like Facebook groups. A lot of times those are private, but Reddit's is certainly rising in power. You're seeing this a lot more in search because it does have a lot of that, if you think of it, that frequently asked question format. So people ask questions on Reddit, they get verified results. People boost those results up. They say, I trust this. This is great. The more responses they get, the higher it rises, and it's kind of less work for these engines to do. So Google's actually boosting these search results. You'll probably see these pretty frequently, especially now that I've said it. You'll see it more often, I think. But these are authentic answers, and it really proposes an opportunity for marketers to jump in there and get into those conversations, but also lead those conversations. Quora, I always say this one wrong, has always been one of those as well, where it's a Q&A forum, same sort of thing, Q&A forum. It still holds a ton of traffic, especially what we call long tail traffic. So people searching for more specific items that have a lot more specific answers related to them. This is also relevant of other forums, but these are two of the ones that really kind of rise to the top. AI assistants, we started to talk about this. I almost butchered the Perplexity name earlier, but these are really the new search engines. They're in the palm of your hand. Siri's been around, Alexa's been around, things like that have been around for a long time, but like the way that these new ones are formatted and allow you to search and save those searches and build, kind of your content and your preferences over time are becoming the new normal. So think of these as the new way to structure searches, create projects, things like that. I keep using the same analogy. So it's like, say it's changing tires, and you start to understand how to change a tire, and you want to start to save that project on changing tires for different cars, different sizes, things of that. You can really save that, which wasn't a thing you could really do before in search engine search results. And then there's also the voice search. So as I mentioned before, things like Siri, Alexa, or even just talking to these generative platforms, which is becoming more and more prevalent, where it's kind of hands-free. You're able to engage with it. Ask it longer questions and ask it to do things for you, or you can do things. Somebody asked about adding a PDF. You can take photos of things and have it give you the information. But so this just really presents a great opportunity for people like with nonprofits that have like logos and event visuals and things they want to share on social or search for, or find out how or do some sort of competitive analysis and find out how their organizations are doing things. And then taking that a step further, thinking about how your donors or your audience are using these things, and really understanding like what we're calling like a multi-platform journey. So maybe they saw your video on TikTok or one of your supporters' videos on TikTok that mentions you, and they search for a solution in one of those platforms or even in Google. They get validated either on Reddit, whichever way they go through. They search on Google and they end up on Reddit. Maybe they're on Reddit and they find out more about you, and then they go to Google to search for you. They end up on your website through one of those channels, and that's how you drive a donation, right? So, hey, I just donated to this cause, a great organization. You learn more about what they do. Then you ask the question, how does this cause help or impact or whatever my community? They learn that through Reddit. They learn that through Google. They end up on your website. They say, wow, they really are local. They've done some great stuff. I want to support them. I can donate now. So just how that role that works. So in summary, this discovery is happening everywhere. So they're not just on one platform. They're not just following that one path. They're not just going to your website anymore. They're not just seeing a billboard and ending up on that website. There's kind of spaces all around them for them to engage. So it's important to be present across those different platforms, and engaging. Nobody can be in every place, so it's certainly pick the platforms that are most relevant for you all, most attainable, and where your audience might be. So understanding that, but certainly a much larger opportunity than was out there before. So how do you do that? We follow the funnel. This is very, I think, very familiar. The funnel is dead, so to speak, because this is this constantly evolving thing, but still it still follows that path, right? From awareness. So things like through social and through communities, through consideration. So, hey, I've learned about this thing. I know this problem exists, but I need to find a solution for that. That's when they start to engage with like the AI assistants, chatbots on the website, Q&A forums, whatever. Or they see an ad because they visited you and you're able to target them or retarget them. And then finally, make sure that they're able to convert somewhere. So they're converting on your website, they're going into your CRM, and then now you're able to kind of keep that cycle going and follow back up with them, and drive them further into being a supporter. So as I mentioned just previously, we like this quote: with discovery everywhere, organizations need unified strategies. So understanding this is all around you, but having a strategy to approach that is paramount for your success.
So now we're getting to part 3. So wrapping up and giving you some strategic recommendations. And I think this is a very apt slide to start on because we only have 9 minutes left, but we're going from chaos with everything. There's everything all over the place, all these different platforms. We're not sure where to go. We're really trying to turn this to a strategy that can be measured, acted on, and improved over time. So, we focused on, the hybrid SEO strategy. It's no longer just looking for website ranking. We want to, incorporate that AEO and GEO inside of all the work we're doing, as well as when we're focusing away from the website onto the other platforms we're on, making sure that we're writing things with, keyword-rich captions, assigning alt text to things, making sure that the photos and stuff we're putting out there are high quality. When it comes to, all the places that we can place this content, we have the website. That's going to be really good for being like home base. So all the, most in-depth description of things, your frequently asked questions, putting that on the website. For social, we're focused on those captions, that alt text, all the tags that we put it on there. Finally, for all the video platforms, making sure that we have transcripts. We're telling good stories and not just trying to, please an AI assistant. We're really focusing on humans and, focusing on the impact, the real world things that you're doing in your organization that are helping folks. For paid strategy, I mentioned the Google Performance Max. Definitely take advantage of the normal search ads that are in there, and then use Performance Max to sort of fill in all the cracks and utilize the rest of that ad grant money. And then, we have Meta Advantage Plus in there. Really make sure that you're spending time putting the creative out there. There's nothing worse than, getting served an ad that is so irrelevant or messy or misformatted that you're like, I can't believe they would disrespect me by putting this in front of me. They paid to do this. So spend some time getting that creative right and getting it in front of the right audience. And look at how you're tracking the brand lift across everything, not just the clicks, measuring the impact that all this work has, in all different areas for it. Finally, authority and trust. These are going to be increasingly important as more and more things are going through these AI agents, these things that are essentially not human. You want to show that, hey, no, there are real people here doing real world work, helping other real people. So build those backlinks, get listed on those other sites, partner with other organizations, and then, show all the stuff that you're already doing. Show those reports that you have to file. Turn them into impact statements. Testimonials and reviews and ratings can be really helpful. And, nonprofits especially, I mentioned it so many times already, but that impact is really the thing you're trying to focus on, not just, hey, I want to match a keyword to my website. Kyle, you want to give a quick overview of the KPIs we're focusing on now?
Yeah, so we talked about this a little bit briefly, but these are the things that we're focused on now. Making sure that we're being included and tracking our inclusion in those AI snippets. Looking for the places that were mentioned, brand mentions and those AI answers. So you can find some of this yourself. So make sure that you're appearing, but also there's different tools and metrics out that we're able to analyze. Where you're showing up now, and then looking at different types of engagements, not just the same kind of likes and things like that existed before, but where you're being saved. So your pages are being saved, your those results are being saved, when they're being shared. It's when that answer is being shared, and then the time that is being spent on the different pages, whether that's like a social media page or a generative AI page or one of your content pages on your site. So a quick kind of roadmap to implement the things we're talking about today. The first step we always look at is like this auditing your content, looking at the SEO basics. Where are you now? Understanding like where we have to work from and what tools we have to work with. Then we move into phase 2, which is optimizing for the answer engine and social visibility. So making sure that you're putting the content's out there, you're putting the content out there, and you're optimizing that content for those questions that come through. And then phase 3 is pushing that across multiple platforms and monitoring those mentions and monitoring the results there. So what this ends up looking like, we sort of started this way, kind of take it all the way through. Before we had this sort of siloed SEO, siloed social. So somebody had to be a follower to see your stuff. You had to get them to engage, tracking things like likes. You're driving them to your website, and then hopefully your website's built to convert them once they're there, and it's easy to answer those questions. Now the after is having this fully integrated AI first strategy, so where it doesn't matter as much if someone's currently a follower. It's what the content that you put out there and the relevant information that's important now to drive them into your ecosystem, to drive them into that larger picture, that full journey we talked about.
So some final takeaways just before we wrap up. Search engine optimization isn't dead. It's incorporating all this new information that we have. The way that people are finding information, it has already been changing quite a bit, but AI really, forces that change on a little more impactful level. There's so many more platforms that people are using beyond just Google to find information. And really, as you're trying to focus on this, authenticity and trust are going to beat out, everything else. It's not to say if you're very authentic, you can completely ignore SEO, but don't sort of sell that authenticity down the river just so you get an extra digit in your KPIs for the month. So really quick, we just have a couple TechSoup services to talk about.
Yeah, we talked about how we're a provider through TechSoup. I want to thank you all for joining the webinar today. Step one is really this SEO audit, something we've had for a long time, but we've certainly in the last couple of years evolved it to be more GEO and AEO focused, and then the new wave of SEO. So we start with an analysis as everything as I talked about, and then we look through meta information, how your keywords, what type of content's on your website. We do a competitor analysis. We create a few reports, and we come back to you with recommendations on how we think you could best improve your strategy for these different outlets. We just launched in the catalog, or will be in the catalog soon, our social media services. So one of the first steps of that is that audit and strategy. Same thing we just talked about for SEO, but this is more geared towards your social ecosystem as it is currently. And then we also have a starter kit where we do the audit strategies included. We'll create up to 7 different branded templates for you all that are reusable. You guys can repurpose those for all kinds of different social media posting, usage guide, usage across different screen sizes as well. And then we have all the suggestions and a content calendar included with that. And then there's some add-ons that are available. One of those is like branding essentials. So if you need a new brand, new logo, new colors, new sort of high-level content, that would be a great package to get started with this, whether that's a new or existing nonprofit. If as I said, different ways we can engage with each other, whether we take things on soup to nuts. One of the ways we engage very well with, especially small, even mid-sized nonprofits, are through our retainer packages. These are really like I don't want to say it's like replaces an intern, but it's got a lot more continuity than some of the volunteers and interns that are used. And then you have access to our entire team. So either package, and then we have custom packages above these, have like 10 hours a month of either support and unlimited requests. So you got a ton of stuff going on. You can send that through to us. We'll help you keep that organized and say, here's the high priority items. Here's the things that are going to have the most impact. And then as I said, you have access to our subject matter experts here. If you go to the premium retainer, you also get a dedicated account manager. You're going to have at least one monthly one-on-one call and conversation with them. So they're helping guide you, helping guide your strategy, and able to listen to how you're trying to grow. This is going to be what you need if you want to add like the upgrades to do like custom development work, setting up automations and things like that. We have a free download. You'll have a link to this when you get this recording and through the email that just kind of talks through nonprofit specifically, how to choose a CRM. And to that point, we are a HubSpot Platinum partner. We've been a partner with HubSpot for almost as long as we've been in business. A great way to get your kind of nonprofit all into one place, into one platform, everything from marketing to donors, taking payments, and then building custom applications right there and servicing that community. We're able to get the nonprofit discount through you all if you reach out to us through one of those links, and that starts at $20 a month for a nonprofit organization. And then implementation of that can run the gamut, but we have a starting point of $3,500, which just helps you get you set up, helps get that CRM in place, and I think one of the hubs is included in that. If you reach out to us today, we'll knock 10% off that, or through this webinar, we'll knock 10% off of that. And we'll also help you get that onboarding fee waived through HubSpot, and that's usually between $1,500 and $3,000. That would be part of that onboarding fee. If you just let us know you came through this webinar or came through TechSoup. More links will be included. You'll see this through here. So to get started, you can contact us. I know Jason shared his email in the chat. You can go to the website and pull the drop down in the services, find websites, digital marketing, AI services that'll take you to us as well. There will be a form on that page you can fill out, leads right to us. There's also a chat bot on that page. As long as somebody's like logged in on our side, we'll be able to answer some of those questions for you right in that chat. And we went over time, so I don't think we have any.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. But if you reach out to us, we'd be more than happy to sort of have that conversation, get you the information you need, and hopefully, set up a project to work with you folks. But otherwise, thank you so much for your time, and I hope you folks have a wonderful rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you so much.